Our second keynote speaker is Shenggen Fan, Director General of IFPRI. He's very well known to all of us here, and he will share some of his perspectives on what's happening in Asia and beyond. Shenggen, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me welcome you to the new building, new seminar room, and the new topic, transforming agriculture. And I wanted to thank Dr. Maurício Lopes. We shared so many platforms in Beijing, in Brazil, in Berlin. Every time I learned from him, from his presentation. So what I'm going to do here is to share with you some of my experience from Asia. I used to present something either at global level on China, but this time I wanted to make sure that Asia is the topic I'm going to zoom in. Yes, we are facing some challenges in Asia. We need Brazil, we need the US to feed ourselves. And I think innovation is also key. In addition to make sure that trade marketing work for us, I think innovation in our food system will be also critical. Then partnership with some of the top national agriculture research institute like Embrapa, CAS, ICA is part of our agenda. Just to let you know that Asia is growing pretty fast. On average, they are growing at more than 5% per year. Some of the emerging economies like India and China, 6%, 7% per year. What does that mean? It means it needs more and better food. And the middle class population in Asia is rising. Today, probably the majority of the middle class population is here in the US, in Europe, Asia, maybe 1/3. But by 2030, 2/3 of the middle class population will be in Asia. China now will have probably 800 million middle class population. India probably at least 500 million by 2030. Again, that means it needs more and a better food. And how can we feed ourselves, Asia in particular? In the meantime, we're facing multi-burden of so-called malnutrition. Yes, Asia still accounts for the largest percentage of hungry people in the world. So even right now, more than 500 million people are hungry. So this is sort of a calorie deficient. People simply do not have enough to eat. So 500 million. Yes, we have made progress, particularly in East Asia, in Southeast Asia. But in South Asia, look at that number. In terms of absolute hungry people, they only decreased very little, from 290 to 280. So it's only 10 million people reduction from 1990 to today. Huge task. Now the second burden is called hidden hunger, lack of micronutrients, vitamin A, zinc, and iron, and beyond. Again, look at the regional differentiation. South Asia, 42% of the population today are still vitamin A deficient. How they will tell you how damaging the deficiency will be on your body, particularly children and women. Yeah. And many girls, rural girls in India, South India, are anemic, probably in some villages, 80%. Then another irony is overweight obesity. So in our own region in Asia, the overweight obesity is increasing. Look at the chart on the right-hand bottom there. In 2000, only 14% of the children is, let's say, overweight. Today, it's 20%. 40% increase in the last 50 years. And if I walk in Shanghai, Beijing, you will see lots of pretty heavy, overweight children, at least 1/3. I mean, they already lost, well, before they even born, so not just in the starting line. Now, Maurício already mentioned about the environmental stress. I'm so glad that Brazil has really transformed its agriculture sector to address some of the environmental concerns. Yes, indeed, we are facing some challenges. If you look at the planetary boundaries, genetic diversity, overuse of phosphorus, and nitrogen. And all the three have already crossed the boundary. So they are in a very dangerous zone. And all the three actually are related to agriculture. The genetic diversity, and push of rice, wheat, and maize to major food production area, and the overuse of fertilizer and nitrogen. And agriculture contribute to 20 to 30% of the greenhouse gas emission. And right now, business as usual by 2050, the whole agriculture sector, food system will emit probably 20 gigaton of carbon a year. And if we wanted to maintain our global warming below 2 degrees, the allowance is probably 10 gigaton. So even just agriculture alone will already push our, let's say, the global temperature more than 2 degrees warmer. But there are opportunities, just like what Dr. Lopes has presented. Narrowing the yield gap and to reduce food waste, food loss, and promote healthy diet. That will reduce the total carbon emission to less than 5 gigaton per year. So agriculture sector is part of the challenge, it's part of the problem. But if we can use innovation in technology, innovation in policy and institutions, I think we can control the total carbon emission definitely below 10 gigaton or even 5 gigaton. Now, technological innovation will be very critical. For example, some of the yield enhancing technologies still great potential to narrow that yield gap. The remote sensing, precision agriculture, and some of the varieties. I think today the CGIR newer varieties should have multiple wins. Wins on saving water, saving land, saving energy, and the nutrition, to promote nutrition and health. So C4 rice is one rice that can do lots of wins, but then still needed to add nutrition into rice, whether it's iron or zinc or vitamin A. ICT obviously clearly a game changer. It's outside of agriculture. Sometimes it is technologies or best practices outside of agriculture that will change agriculture fundamentally. So ICT on the G20 China initiative to promote e-commerce. And then policy innovation is equally important. Technology is critical, but policy is equally important. So for example, how can we really eliminate the current $500 billion subsidies in water, in fertilizers, in energy, and these subsidies just produce several major food crops, and they contribute to the degradation of our natural resources, water, land, underground water is being depleted, and they also contributed to more carbon emission. So they are not just environmentally sustainable. In the meantime, they produce large, stable crops, so-called big fives, rice, wheat, maize, potato, maybe cassava, fine. So what is the policy option? Can we convert some of these subsidies to support more nutritious food production, whether it's biofortification, whether it's introduce more diverse crop production, so diverse diet, and to tackle some of the environmental challenges. So $500 billion, it's a big money. How can we reform that? And institutional innovation is equally important. Gender. During the Green Revolution era, we never paid attention to women, to gender. I remember because of the Green Revolution, so we could produce 3 crops a year, like in Brazil, you can have multiple crops per year. But who is doing the work? It's women. So instead of 8 hours per day, they would work 10, 12, or even 13 hours a day. So they don't have time to take care of their children. They don't have time to cook more nutritious, healthy food. So today we needed to have institutional innovation to empower these women and to make sure that they have access to assets like land, water, access to financial services, access to political voice. I think the political voice probably is one of the most critical ones. They can really empower themselves. Then value chains. How can we use ICT link millions of smallholders with rising middle income population, as I described? We have seen some successes in China, in India, and not just young people begin to set up a platform, internet platform, to link producers and consumers, whether it's organic, healthy, nutritious food, use a camera, web camera, so at home you can see how your food is produced, what inputs have been used, how the food is transported to your doorstep. And mutual learning. I think this is IFPRI's job. How can we use our data, analysis, evidence generated from our research to work with the countries to share across different countries? On the nutrition side, we have an initiative called Compact 2025, which towards the end of this year, end of November, so we are proposing to have a global gathering to make sure that some of the best practices, technologies, policies could be shared among different countries, Africa and Asia. We also have some platform like RACEX, Asia, Africa, and Regional Strategic Analysis Information System to share the data, share the best practices, share the research results across different countries to make sure that decision makers are empowered with evidence supported by research. So I'm very excited to work with that's Embrapa and the US government. I think Asia depends on other regions to feed themselves. So my final message is we must make sure that the global trade system remain open, transparent, so we can share what we have and share what we don't have. And this is very critical at this moment right now. Okay, thank you.